Welcome to Classic Heart, the BMW Group Classic Podcast. I'm JP, and today we're having a little party here. We've invited 5 fabulous guests from previous episodes, and I can promise you already it's going to be a joyful review of the year 2024. I'm hyper excited to hear what they tell me about their greatest BMW moments, most exciting events, races, and projects.
This car is the most honest car you ever see.
It's been a dream ever since I've had it.
The first time I heard that engine screaming, I thought, I gotta have one of those.
For me, the cars have personality.
What's great about a BMW Classic is the community that surrounds it.
When you listen to that, that's why we're here.
And today with us is Katarina Kyvalova, accomplished vintage racer and a great ambassadress for the vintage car thingies. So welcome, Katarina.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
And with a little time, and the time is really of the essence here, is Simon Kidston, an expert in the acquisition of classic cars, if I may say so, and of course the voice of the Concorso d'Eleganza Villa d'Este, and also concours jury. Welcome, Simon.
Thanks for allowing me back, Philip.
I mean, I thought about it a long time, but it's we are happy that you join us. Let's say it that way. And
Madness
of course,
prevailed.
And of course, Sreten, and we all know and love his YouTube channel, M539 Restoration. I'm keen to learn what kind of car Sreten is working on at the moment. So welcome, Sreten.
Thank you for having me again.
And of course, from the USA in fluent German, no, we do it in English today, is Jason Cammisa. We laughed a lot together. We will laugh a lot together. And that's the wonderful thing that you join us today, besides your YouTube channels, also to say hello to us in this little round. Welcome, Jason.
It was a huge mistake for you to invite me back.
I think it was the most beautiful mistake I will ever done in my life. And last but not least is my dear friend Neil Clifford, and with his hashtag "Don't be a lazy bastard," of course he joined our podcast here. Welcome, Neil.
Hi, JP. Thank you for having me again.
So, Simon, what were your personal highlights in 2024? I mean, in terms of acquisition, is there anything noticeable that you can share with us? Something that excited you personally?
Well, sadly, no 300 SLRs this year. They seem to be running out. But there have been some fun things this year. Not everything has to always have a stratospheric price tag attached to it, although it helps pay the bills if they do. I think one of the fun things that I bought this year was a Ferrari 275. I think Neil is fond of those as well.
I am,
despite some people's opinions to the contrary. But I managed to buy in the States a factory black 4-cam. You know, I'm a great believer that colors make cars, with racing history. So that's a project that hopefully you will see on the road sometime next year after the full Monty down in Modena. Plus the last Prince of Wales Aston Martin built as well, which has been going through a lot of work in the UK this year. Wow. So yeah, some slightly different things, but I guess the theme is always trying to find something that is in some way the best of its kind. And as we all like a story, something that has a good story attached to it.
I mean, that sounds amazing. And I have to say, I think we have two parties that are very fond of the 275s, I would say. Actually, Katarina is wearing a pullover in the same color as her car. As I see
that style.
Yeah, of course.
Favorite
always.
color, obviously.
Yeah. And I think, as you said, it's always good to find the best, you think. And I think Sreten has a different concept on that one. Sreten is ought to find the worst to make the best out of it. Sreten, so yep. What was the latest BMW acquisition?
Oh, many of them. I bought 2 cars in the States. I bought one in Bavaria a couple of months back, and it's the worst of its kind. I can't reveal what it is right now, but it has a broken engine, it has broken suspension, broken interior, and a lot of rust, and over 300,000 kilometers. And it's a touring, that I can say.
Okay, that's amazing. Color-wise?
Azure black.
You see, it's a black
BMW paint. No, I don't like black cars, but it's like deep metallic blue, so it's a very nice color in direct sunlight.
I mean, Simon, you said it. Cars are important, but more important than cars is their color nowadays, I would say, because of all the Instagram age and stuff. So what is your take, all of you, what is your take on colors? So what is the new future color on vintage and young classic cars?
I think it's rare colors, mainly rare colors. I think that's something... There are cars coming up all of a sudden in color combinations where you just have to fall in love with this car because I think it's the color, because it's just the most unusual combination. You just see it and you think, oh my goodness. I mean, especially cars I never looked at, and all of a sudden it just rocks up in a certain color and I'm straight away fall in love with that car. So, back to colors make cars, as Simon said. I think there's something about it. Something that's not banal, like, although it's a nice car, a red Ferrari Daytona. You see the same car in Verde Baram or a 911 Turbo, what I guess you in the States would call a 930 Turbo, as I saw last week in Milan at the show in a metallic brown. Cars that are of the period and cars that are of the place as well. I mean, you can get away with murder on a 50s Corvette or a 59 Biarritz. That might not work as well on a Miura. But something that is unusual, something that is of the period, but most importantly, something that is original to the car. People agonize about engine numbers, but if you ask an owner what engine number, or an ex-owner what engine number his car had 30 years ago, unless they're slightly worrying, they're not going to remember. They'll definitely remember the color. And I think that's such an important part of a car's identity that it should be preserved.
So I might be the dissent here on this one.
This is what you're here for, Jason.
Okay, good. I can drive a car for a week and then not tell you what color it was. And I'm not kidding. This happens all the time when I'm testing new cars. I have 6 cars that are champagne. Volkswagen Flash Silver, Mercedes Smoke Silver, and the BMW. Oh God, what's that terrible color? There's one gold. I have one car that has almost no paint left on it, and it's that one.
Sreten knows that.
But I do have cars that are great colors. But I will say I'll agree with Simon and say a red Ferrari would be out. I wouldn't consider. I have an ivory 308 GT4. And I wouldn't have purchased it if it were red.
I like that. And I mean, Neil, your latest acquisition is from the BMW world. And it's not that colorful, I would say, but still gorgeous.
Well, it's a special color. I'm in my little world of my friendship group, I'm famous for going slightly mad in COVID and painting 5 cars Brewster green. And then obviously the Make Green Great Again has moved to brown and moved to purple. On the purple front, yes, I bought for the second time, because I owned the car from 2011 to 2016 and stupidly sold it to my good friend Jamiroquai, and he then stupidly sold it, and then it disappeared. A Macau blue, one of one really, 86 Motor Show car, E28 M5 with full red leather made as an exclusive order. And that, you saw it actually, JP. We had coffee recently at our little coffee shop in Camden.
Yes.
And that was my first outing in the car. And I was so happy to have that car back. It disappeared, and then suddenly it just popped up on Instagram at a dealership that I know, which in fact I bought it from them for the first time as well. The car was rebuilt over 7 years by a BMW mechanic. Everything is basically brand new, even though it's got 170,000 miles on the clock, UK car. And yes, I've got it back. So it's like losing a dog and it coming back 7 years later, basically.
Sreten, would that BMW a bit too old for you?
That's the very first M5.
Yeah,
I've been actually hunting for one of those, but it's very difficult to find one that's not a complete rust bucket, and that
can't be. It's a BMW, can't be rust.
Yeah.
I can feel a deal coming on this podcast between 2 of the participants.
No, Simon, I can tell you, if you have watched the YouTube videos Sreten does, and Sreten, you explain best what you do for a living.
Well, I try to find the worst examples of BMWs, like classic stuff, 90s, early 2000s, late 2000s, and then restore them on the channel. Right now, I'm in the process of restoring my 1991 E31 850i with a 6-speed manual. It spent 10 years in a French garden in Marseille, near Marseille. Yeah. I got it running, and then I took it apart completely, stripped the entire chassis, had it dry ice blasted. I built a different engine for it, like OEM Plus style, so it has more power, more displacement. Wow. And I just finished rebuilding the entire rear suspension, which is BMW's first multi-link rear axle. So it has 11 bushings and 14 ball joints. I actually counted all of that.
I mean, Simon, I would love to see you doing this as well to one of your cars.
If I knew how, I might.
You can do an intern at Sreten's place. I mean, that would be amazing.
Do you know, I would learn an awful lot. I might come out a changed man.
Katarina, do you buy restored cars, or do you also enjoy restoring them in terms of finding the right restorer?
Well, I'm mainly driver. I have no idea how to fix car, I really have to admit. So I'm rather more like, ready to go. But from time to time, I've attempted to get a car in auction, and you never know what you get, do you? So there were a couple of surprises.
That's the fun part.
Yeah, that's the fun part. There's a surprise like, oh, okay. Especially when you buy a car, nothing against you guys in the US, there's lots sort of, it's a shiny, but you don't know what is under it. So I had a couple of cases where all of a sudden it became a project out of it. So I personally try to go for a car which you just can take for a ride straight away. But there are a couple of cars which been a project from scratch, there's a project, there's a history file, and you try to just, bring the car back to life. And that takes years. I mean, Simon knows that's a whole evolution behind that. So that's very exciting too, but I can't do it myself, I have to admit.
Welcome to my world, I said. I'm like too left-handed, I would say.
Yeah.
Lately, when I was in Munich and stopped by at the Classic, the BMW Classic, I saw they were restoring this fantastic 7 Series designed by Lagerfeld for Hotel Group in Italy.
The 38.
Yes. Oh,
wow.
Very nice car. The color on the Simon, if you say that color is important, that color is really flamboyant, I would say.
What is it?
It's two-tone, I think.
Two-tone, and it's like in this changing dark violet, oxblood red. So it looks very special. Has like the most flamboyant seats as well. They look like if they'd taken off a Louis XIV castle and put into a BMW. And this car also spent his life for quite a while in a garage with being neglected. And now they're doing this stuff. And I always like to see with how much passion these engineers and mechanics go into that one and really want to make it exactly as it was by the build sheet and bring it back to life. I really love that. I love that.
I've just remembered that I bought a 7 Series actually from a lovely auction house that will remain nameless. I think it's E65. What's the 2002 7 Series? E65. A 745 IL. I'm not sure it's green or blue, but I think it's dark green. But I bought it solely because it was a one-owner car from the Sultan of Oman, is London chauffeur car, and it's got a one-off denim interior. And I've no idea why I bought it. Everything works, which I'm amazed. The air conditioning, I had to replace the key. The key needed new, but everything's perfect. Even the boot flips open remotely. And I've driven it once. And my wife just keeps saying to me, when are we actually going to use that car? Because really I need a driver, but unfortunately I don't like having a driver because I like driving cars. So I've just got this lovely, crazy 7 Series to look at.
With a denim interior.
With a denim interior, of course.
It looks very special, though, I have to say. I mean, I think, speaking about the driver car, I mean, Simon, you own a Rolls Royce that should also be driven by a driver, but you drive it, right?
I I don't know if it should be driven by a driver. That model was called the Sports Saloon.
Yeah.
And there isn't actually that much room in the back of it. So maybe it would suit a circus dwarf with a driver, but not a tall person like me. I love driving that car. I bought it almost on a whim. Somebody said, would you sell it for me? And I thought, well, it's not the sort of car that we handle. But I went to see it, and I ended up making an offer to the transport driver who introduced me to the guy who owned it, because he used to move it around all the time. And I almost made an offer to be polite when I bumped into him at a reception. He said, next morning he called me and he said, you've bought it. And that was 10 years ago. And I have to say, it's become my daily driver. And that car is not worth a lot of money, but it gives me a huge amount of satisfaction. And apart from this morning, when it wouldn't start because it had a flat battery, as I'd left it outside for a week in the freezing weather, it's been unfailingly reliable. But that car's, the technology in a car like that is virtually non-existent, and it's nearly 60 years old. But it just goes to show that if you look after something, and I think we all agree, drive it regularly.
Yes.
In other words, don't leave it unattended for a week. No reason why it shouldn't work for many years to come. And I'm sure the people who built it all those years ago felt the same way. But I probably drive that car, I'd say, about 8,000 miles a year. It's my only car in the UK, and long may that continue. Well, it's got paint bubbles now, which are going to have to be attended to. So my wallet is going to be even emptier next year than it was this year. And it's never worth it. But on the basis that you enjoy it, I think with all of the cars that we're talking about, which don't have to be expensive to have fun, which don't tell anybody that. That's what they're for, right? That's I think the one thing that brings us all together is a passion for cars, and above all, using the damn things. And I always say, just drive it. Stop. Polishing is good when you're at a Concours d'Elegance, but if you're not driving the thing, you're missing the whole point of it.
Absolutely.
You have to find occasion to use your car sometimes, isn't it?
Every occasion. I would say every and any occasion. These cars were built to be used.
Depends on the car.
I think there's a point, depending on the car. I mean, you shouldn't go with a Lister Jaguar on a road trip.
I have back to Rolls-Royce. Silver Ghost from 1922 saloon. It's a huge car. It's not that super easy just to take it for a coffee stop or go downtown London with it, So I sort of always have to find the occasion for that. So, okay, I do a drive on the go, I see friends, or let's meet a couple of Silver Ghosts together and go for lunch somewhere. But it's not a daily car, is it? I mean, I would love to see someone who is using it as a daily.
I'll bet you that car, when it was built new, was intended by Rolls-Royce to be a daily driver. But back in those days, it was assumed that a Rolls-Royce would be driven by a chauffeur, and you usually sent your chauffeur on a course when you bought the car to instruct him how to use it. But absolutely, I would say that was intended as a daily driver. Okay, you didn't have traffic jams like today, but still.
And I mean, imagine standing in that car in the heat in the center of London. Is not that good for the car, I would say, Dan.
I've just bought a Rolls-Royce this week.
1922?
1980.
Oh.
Are you going into the wedding hire business, Neil?
Yep, 100%. 1980.
Is it white and stretched?
Shadow 2 from our good friend JP Merlin at Duke of London.
Very good.
Brewster green with green leather.
I saw that car at our Jägermeister night.
This is the Heathrow posse.
Yeah.
Yes.
And can you get a better value car for 20 grand than a Shadow 2 with green? I don't think so.
No, you can't. Don't ask what the maintenance is going to cost, but I agree with you, absolutely. It's literally a ton. Actually, it's more than a ton of car for the money.
It is. I think I've got a verbal warranty for 12 months.
That's good.
From a used car dealer.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Simon, we know that you have to leave soon, but I would like to know from your side, what was the most wonderful car, not probably one of your own, you saw this year from the vintage car world?
I think it was probably and my expertise on this period is very weak, but it was probably the Mercedes that was at the start of the London to Brighton, which had been sold at auction earlier this year. I think it was from 1903, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And the remarkable thing about it was that it had been in the same family since new.
No
Can you imagine
way.
keeping a car for 120 years?
Wow.
That sounds like Jason's garage.
And it worked. And people talk a lot about investment in classic cars. That's something which I'm sure we've all heard a great deal about, whether it's a relatively young BMW or something red with lots of zeros. But I just think that's such a heartwarming story that they kept it for all of that time, and now it's gone to somebody else who, what's the first thing that he does with it? Takes it on one of the most grueling tours that you can do with a car like that, which shows that they too are the right kind of enthusiast. So
amazing.
It's not the most expensive car any of us, I'm sure, have seen this year. It's definitely not the cheapest. But I just, on the basis that cars are literally vehicles for human stories, I love the story behind that car.
I mean, Simon just mentioned the veteran car run London to Brighton, and actually we have someone who participated in that car run. And I think Katarina, tell us, what car did you drove and how was the experience? I mean, these things look like more like coaches than anything else, I would say. Did you survive, first of all?
Well, I'm here. I survived.
Yeah.
It was, I have driven a 1900 Daimler, as the British say. The car belongs to Royal Automobile Club, which is amazing. So it was a great honor, I really have to say. It was on my bucket list for years, and I really wanted just to do it once, and pretty special. I mean, it was the slowest driving moving forward from my entire life. It is so slow. It's like 6 horsepower. Right, and so he's like, it's just crazy. It's a almost like per gear, 1 horsepower, almost, right?
Yeah.
And when you are like surrounded by these cars from that period and even older steam cars, and you just it's fascinating. So you only just feel and just see how how the evolution of car those days, how fast that was, because the youngest car is from 1905. So it's not sort of like huge spectrum of cars you see. But honestly, I got to Brighton and I felt like I won a 24-hour race or something. It was just a huge feeling of satisfaction, I definitely have to say. So brilliant. And guys, you haven't done it, put it on your bucket list. It's something super special.
I'd go every time to watch. I didn't really know, which is obviously it's an obvious thing. It is the oldest motor racing event in the world, obviously, because that was a celebration of the change of the law, that you didn't have to have a man walking in front of you with a flag. So it's the most ridiculous thing. I go there with my son, we take lots of photos, we have a coffee, and then we go for a nice breakfast in the Lanesborough, and go home in our lovely warm car.
But I can definitely assure you, there's a sort of totally different experience when you drive yourself and trying to overtake in a super minimal speed, and it's just hilarious. It's so different, right?
It's definitely on my bucket list.
Yeah.
And I was surprised because I was, of course, supporting Katarina in this big endeavor and waited at the finish line. And I have to say, that is not only old people. Surprisingly and happily, many, many young people were there around.
Yeah.
I mean, tell me one other motoring event where you have a whole family involved, like actively involved. So, and there are 400 cars on start, and you have these, kids being excited for 9 hours, sitting in a bloody cold, and where do you have it? So the passion for cars, the passion for the idea to do it is just there. It's so unique.
And the guys on the bicycles, guys and girls, on the penny farthing bicycles I think they get let out just before sunrise. The bicycles go off. I mean, a penny farthing, what is it, 40 miles, 50 miles to Brighton?
Yeah. 60 miles.
60 miles. I mean, it's
You have to
brilliant. It's brilliant.
Yes.
Yeah, you feel like king with 6 horsepower, you're just overtaking them.
And I think it will be there for the next 100 years as well, because this kind of tradition will never die, I think. But Jason, bucket list, any new additions for 2025?
I'm split in between two worlds because professionally I mostly concentrate on newer cars, and then personally I'm far more interested in old stuff. I'm really excited about the Neue Klasse from BMW, because I think this is their first first sort of ground up new vehicle. But really most of the things that I'm looking forward to, other than I will at some point have to kill someone to get into a Gordon Murray T50. Or behind the wheel. I mean, poor Dario Franchitti, he's going to get it. If I have to ride in the car with him again, he's getting thrown out. That bastard. Just take him by his luscious hair and throw him out no, but there's a never-ending list of classic cars that I really want to get in. I'm happy that the list of cars that I want to own is dwindling, because I keep buying more cars, and that's a problem.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Sreten, for you, bucket list, something that has been come to it you want to fulfill in 2025?
Oh man, I have like 15 cars, so it's kind of difficult to do that. Actually, I think I have more than 15. But yeah, I wanna finish my E31 finally and get it back on the road, because it's been 2-3 years that I've been working on it right now. And then the other worst example that I bought to start on that next year.
How's my Alpina doing?
It's doing good. It's still sitting on the lift, waiting for me to find time to work on it.
Yes, very good. Take your time, because my budget, my secretary of budget is not giving the green light yet. But I wait for you then.
Well, funnily enough, so now I have like 2 special E39 Tourings, my supercharged 530i and the Alpina. And once I fix up the Alpina, I'm going to have to decide which one I want to keep, because keeping both...
it's a tricky one, I know. We love to drive our cars. So which trips have been your best driving experiences?
I happened to do the Beijing to Paris this year. It's a 5 weeks pure driving.
The only thing I've done is the Targa Florio. And I did actually get my act together. I went with a few mates, including Dario, actually. And
Here we go, Jason.
We screamed around Sicily in a 1965 Alfa GTA, and basically came last.
How was it?
Came last, and it was probably the most wonderful thing I've ever done. So yeah, I need to do more of that. Yeah.
Of course, but I mean, let's speak about the Peking to Paris. I mean, how many days are you away?
Well, it's 5 weeks pure driving, and 1 week is being there before. I know, wow. It sounds absolutely crazy. 6 weeks in total, because you have to be in China before to apply for Chinese driving license and Chinese license plates for your car, because you're not allowed to drive in that country. So that takes some time and prepare, you have to prepare your kit. So yeah, in total 6 weeks. Yeah, I know.
I need to get fired. I basically need to get fired.
The moment you leave Beijing and you're in the middle of nowhere in desert Gobi or something, you have no signal. And it stresses you out for a while. At some point, you really stop to care.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Sounds right for me, to be honest.
I mean, I'm American. I don't even understand the idea of a single day off. So this is all foreign, blah, blah, blah to me. No, you're absolutely right.
You really make me look really bad, that now.
No, you're looking really good. That's the problem. You have this figured out.
Yeah.
I have a big birthday coming up next year. I'm turning 30. Sure, 40. Make up whatever number you want. That's complete and utter truth. But I'm thinking about what I'm going to do. And right around that time will be Targa Newfoundland. And wow. My friend Randy Popes just did it this past year, and he said,
yes,
it's a real race. Of course, Randy would make it into a real race and then would win overall in a completely stock 1986 Porsche Targa.
Of course,
I'll take my Scirocco. I'll do whatever it is. I'll drive. It'll take 2 weeks for me to drive there and 4 days of racing, and then fly.
I mean, that sounds amazing. I mean,
speak once you've done it, and I really want to hear what you think.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very good. Sreten, events, is that something like you do, or you just do it like Neil, more like for yourself driving and have fun?
Like the Villa d'Este, that was 2 years ago. I loved it.
With
I
Jason.
said I'm going to go there. Yeah, with Jason. And I said I'm going to go there again next year. Didn't have the time to go.
Take the time.
I've never been. You need to help me, JP, on Villa d'Este.
Oh,
No, it's a great
brilliant
event.
event.
Neil, help is on its way. But we've talked about the Concorso del Ganze Villa d'Este many times in this podcast, and everyone always raves about it in the most positive way. And I think if you want to find out more about the event, you should really listen to the episode with Simon Kidston that we have recorded. He is also our guest, actually was our guest today. Unfortunately, he had to leave a bit earlier. So attending the Concorso del Villa d'Este is always worthwhile. But I think many of us, excluding me this year, went to Car Week.
It's the first time I'd ever been to Car Week. So I literally jumped on a plane into San Francisco, rented a BMW 4 Series convertible out of San Fran, and just headed down the same day. Spent 24 hours, actually put up beautifully by our friends DK Engineering in their swimming pool cabin in their little house. So I slept on the sofa for a couple of nights and had the most wonderful time. And I've always desperately tried to get there, and I finally got there, and that now for me is definitely on a list to just hang out in Carmel for that 3 or 4 days, because it's where my people are.
Yeah, I mean, Jason, we are big fans of that as well, right? And Katarina.
Yeah. I was in that DK Engineering house. I drove that F50 on Tuesday morning.
Blackwood. I was asleep in the garden.
Sorry about all the noise. But Sreten also made it. Sreten's trip to San Francisco this summer from Monterey was
my first Car Week this year, yeah.
Man,
I did
so
it a bit differently than you. I bought a E60 M5. That's the one with the V10 engine with the 6-speed manual on a salvage auction. And got it delivered directly to Jason's warehouse, his garage. Yeah. So I flew in 7 days before the start of the Car Week and set on a journey to fix it.
What could possibly go wrong?
Oh, yeah.
A totaled E60 M5.
With undercarriage damage. So the best surprise damage. Yeah. It had a cracked oil pan, then a cracked subframe, and then the engine was stuck, which was fun. And everyone around me was looking at me. Was like, "You're crazy. There's no way you're gonna get this fixed in 5 days." Bill, the local mechanic legend, BMW legend, he was like, "There's no way you're gonna get this car running in 5 days." Jason was pretty skeptical as well.
Not pretty skeptical. No. I was absolutely convinced that car was going to sit in my warehouse for the next 22 years.
Yeah, but about 4.5 days later, the engine was running, and on the 5th day, it was back on the road.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then I used it the entire Car Week, and we did amazing livery on it as well. We made a tribute to Sabine Schmitz. So we tried to, I don't want to say replicate, but create ring taxi. Yeah, the ring taxi. So we did the nice livery with the ring taxi on the side, and also a nice portrait of Sabine on the back. And the car turned out absolutely amazing.
That's unbelievable.
That's definitely my highlight of the year.
Love that one. That's a cool story.
Yeah, I think Sreten, I think you won Car Week with that car. I said it at the time. I'm just driving around. Everyone would look at the car, see the picture of Sabina, and just get all the feels. It was fantastic.
The shivers.
Because as soon as I saw that the car was white and I bought it, I was like, I know what I need to do. Because all ring taxis were white. So I was like,
that's mega.
Yeah, I love that story. I mean, that's a automotive passion on a different level, I would say.
Yeah. No, it's by far my favorite project that I've done so far, and
And is the car still in the US, or is it meanwhile back in Europe?
No, unfortunately, I had to part ways with the car because the whole trip and the whole buying the car and spending 2 weeks in San Francisco, it was quite expensive, so I had to part ways with the car. The car is actually right now in Washington, in Spokane, on BMW dealership showroom. So it's it actually went from the salvage auction to BMW showroom.
Wow.
And, So
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to make a dream come true?
I own a 205 T16.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to drive it to San Moritz for the ice. And I want there to be ice at the ice, which would be nice. Which we were there, JP, in the car park, weren't we? As opposed to actually on the ice.
Yeah,
but I really, I've prepared this car. I've had it serviced about 4 times in the last 4 years to do something imaginative. Go and visit my friends who scream around Cortina in January, and I'm I have all these dreams, and then I'm busy working. So I really want to take the T16 to San Moritz in February.
And we wait for you there. Because that's also a fabulous event. I really like it. If it's happened, that's the only thing.
It's a great event. It's a really great event, yeah.
But also there, I can say, so for giving reference, so we had too much snow, so we can't allow cars on the ice, actually, on the lake, frozen lake in St. Moritz. And even people that would only arrive on the day of the event for the Concours of Elegance, everyone stayed, and this is what I also loved. They even came, even though they knew we cannot do anything. We were in a public car park, and we're talking cars. Obviously, the most fantastic cars were there. We couldn't even drive.
I knew there was no ice, but I still flew to Zurich from London City, got on about 3 trains from Zurich, came there, had a club sandwich, saw you, stood in a car park, and then went home again.
Perfect.
And I didn't regret it, because you don't sort of, I can't imagine that when you're 80 years old and you're sat there at the end of your life, you don't say, I wish I would have done less.
Well said. Exactly, Neil. And I think that's a great closing statement. No regrets. No matter how crazy your car projects, dreams, races, and tours may be, do not regret any of them. And with that, I would like to close this fantastic lap of honor at the end of the year 2024. Thank you so much for joining Katarina Kyvalova, Simon Kidston, Sreten, Jason Cammisa, and Neil Clifford. And thank you to everyone who listened. As always, I would like to ask you to give us a 5-star rating, subscribe to our channel, and if you have a great story to tell and would like to be a guest in our podcast, write us. You can find the contact details in the show notes. Finally, I would like to thank our team. Obviously, without this podcast would not happen. Our editor, Frederica von Königswald, Marcus and Alex from Scenario Studio, and our producer, Robin Seiser from Shot One. And a note, the next Classic Hard episode will be released on January 9th, 2025. In the meantime, you're highly welcome to use the holidays to listen or re-listen to former episodes. I can especially recommend those with our fabulous guests today, obviously. Thank you all. See you next year. That's all, folks.
Bye. Bye. Happy New Year.
Bye.
Happy New Year, absolutely.